Oxygen we have outlined case studies in our program as well. That is what everyone quickly understands. Now, when we talk about environment, as we have said, that the economic development that also comes at the same time. Economic development of the region, of the people who are actively involved there. And in addition to that, that is, we have seen that that is the corona not only brings the physical stress but also a mental stress among the people. So everyone was trying to go outside of their home, and so tourism, obviously, when people from their normal life they want some break and they want to regenerate themselves. So the issue of tourism comes into place. And in today's panel, ranging from ecotourism, urban tourism, medicinal plants, so the tourism, the tea tourism, I think, which will be important in this area as well, that is in the Borak Valley, because of so many tea gardens. And in fact, there are several areas of tourism which is related to environment. Tourism itself, because people want to come out of their home and they spend their time in the heart of the nature. So tourism and environment goes together. And different aspects of improvement in that is how tourism can be involved in the post-pandemic. I think that is a challenge also. There are other infrastructural issues related to tourism. I think that those will be coming in today's presentations as well. So overall, I think we'll have some takeaways from this session. That is what needs to be done, what needs to be carried out. For example, in this region, we were working with the tea gardens. That is how the tea tourism can be one of the, say, economy changing scenario in this region. The other things can be what I sometimes tell these people, that rain tourism. Because, say, there are some parts of the world where rains are scarce, but this part of the country, so rains are abundant during some period of time. So people might be feeling drenching in the rain, that is during this rainy season. And that can be one way of inviting people to the environment. So there are a lot of scopes, lot of innovative ideas that will come up. And the traditional things like the road and the infrastructure and connectivity, the other facilities, so everything has to be there. So with these wishes, so I understand that today it is going to be a great day and a lot of recommendations will be, I think, identified by the rapporteurs at the end of the session. So with this, I give the session an open house. So I'll have to leave because I have got other places to see and other things, because so many guests will be coming. We'll have to make arrangements for that also. See that everything is fine. So with this, I take leave from our esteemed guests. Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Sir, box.
Thank you so much, sir.
Kanyang siya, kasi awan baron store. Kanyang siya sa kren na baron store. Siya Sony berpana sa nikmat. Kamusta?
We can also do without the people. We can have a discussion.
Before presentation, now I would like to request one of the panelists, Dr. R. Mangeshwaran, to give an introductory remark on the session.
Thank you. Presentation will be better.
respected Director NIT, panelist on the dais, and dignitaries and participants, students. Very good morning, namaskar, vanakkam. This medical tourism discussion is really it is need of the hour, because medical tourism once initially it was started in the allopathic system. Later on it shifted to Ayurvedic traditional system also, because each system have their own strength in certain areas. Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani and homeopathy, all the systems in certain diseases working well. So later on, even this COVID period also, nobody is recommended for any health drinks or nothing. So it was only for gilow, ginger and lemon, all those things were promoted. Even after this COVID period, many of the medicinal plants, almost 10 medicinal plants gone up like anything, the demand and requirement. Ashwagandha, once we got at least for 100 rupees or something. Now it is 300 or 500, even sometimes it was reaches for 300 per kg. So likewise, after COVID, many of the medicinal plants become higher demand in the market. So these are all the aspects we have to consider, and I will give detailed presentation in my PPT, and I will give more information to share with you. With this, I wishes this program, which for Northeast Summit, will get a good success and grand success, and it will be benefit to the society and community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Anjuna Prashad Dev ma'am to give your introductory remark.
Good morning, everybody. As the director sir said, it's after quite a long time that we are actually addressing a physical session, and it gives such a lot of joy and pleasure to be, standing face to face with all of you. One is so used to addressing people on Zooms and through technology that one has almost forgotten. So, thank you for being here for us, and a very good morning to you again, and to the respected panelists again. I'm Dr. Anjuna Dheer. I represent Responsible Tourism Society of India. And when we say responsible, what we say is that the business of tourism, like all businesses, has to finally become sustainable. And sustainability is not just environmental sustainability, which we adequately learned from the COVID pandemic for 2 years now, which has taken away 2 precious years of our lives. But also, since we're human beings, we cannot do away with the economic sustainability. So the second part is economic sustainability. And finally, at the end of it, since we are a socio-cultural animal, so of course, socio-cultural sustainability. So it becomes a responsibility of all of us to look at all the 3 aspects of sustainability. And the 4th aspect also is something which I bring to the table, where till now, sustainability is not a new word. We all have heard of it. And yet, why is it that we've not been sustainable? Because it came like a fad. Today we were talking of it, and tomorrow we were not. Till the time sustainability becomes an everyday, every moment aspect, a part and parcel of our lives, till that time, it will not succeed. And we'll always have one thing, one disaster or another one facing us. So that's the 4th aspect of sustainability that we stand for. And it is each and every one of us, individually, business-wise, to make the whole business and our own life sustainable. So that's what we say. It's responsible behavior that is the need of the hour. The session is very interesting. We are looking at the potential of alternate kind of tourisms in Northeast. So I look forward to hearing all of us and sharing thoughts. And of course, look forward to your interactions too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Shri Nilanjan Roy sir to give a few words about us.
Good morning. So this campus makes me very nostalgic. So I began my professional journey from this campus way back in 1989 when I was a young boy of 17, 18. From Shillong, I'd come here for my engineering. That time used to be called REC. I came here for my engineering counseling. And of course, Silchar was one of the options, but I chose a different institute because my mother wanted me to go as far away from Shillong as possible. So, and I'm a man of computer science. I deal in artificial intelligence and cognitive search. So I was wondering when the organizers put me here, what do I talk of, ecotourism or the green economy? So I said that at that point in time, what was relevant for me? When I was sat with you, where you were sitting at that time, my fear was, will I get employed? Where can I go? What careers would I have? Because in a small town like Shillong, the only career I knew was probably UPSC or a bank PO exam. I did not know any careers apart from that. That was my limited scope. So the areas I'm going to cover is the green economy, what opportunities for what kind of careers are going to open up. And there's a huge amount of careers there, what kind of roles you should look at, and what kind of specialization or what kind of skills do you need to acquire to get jobs in the new green economy that's going to come up. Yeah, looking forward to the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Shri Partha Pratim Das sir to give his few words about the session.
Thank you. First of all, a warm welcome to all of you to this session of 6th Northeast Green Summit, where we are going to discuss about responsible tourism, herbal tourism, ethnic tourism. As Nilanjan said, it's nostalgic even for many of us here, because the Northeast Green Summit is the 6th year. It has kind of become like an annual pilgrimage for the industry experts who love nature and academicians, experts. We keep on meeting on this platform again and again. So that enriches our knowledge. When many of us had previously met on the previous occasions. Marak sir is there. He hosted us a couple of years ago in Shillong. So our journey continues. So this is a process where new people get attached to the summit every year, and we try to make our world a little better than it is currently today. In my opening remark, only thing that I can say is that this post-COVID, the scenario changed a lot, and this is making our resolve to make our things more greener and better, stronger. As directors have said, after almost 2 years, you are having a physical program in the main auditorium. For many of us, during the lockdown period, we have had many sessions and webinars and whatnot. But the physical interaction, that was lacking. Even today, this session is a split session because we are also having a virtual session parallelly, where Madam Rashmi Verma, our former Secretary of Tourism, Government of India, should be joining us live from Delhi. Then we have a speaker from Bangladesh, just across the border, Dalton Jahir. He's also an industry expert from Bangladesh. He's joining us. Then there's somebody from Bhutan who is joining us and talking about herbal and medicinal plants in Bhutan. So this is kind of a merge session, a sandwich session. So technology is beautiful, and Nilanjan, I'm sure he'll guide us through how to make IIT as a tool for this growth platform. So I'm really looking forward to listening to all of you and also sharing my experience. What I'm going to talk about is basically I'm a practical guy in a sense that I have practiced community-based tourism in Manas National Park of India. That's where I began 15 years ago. So that is a story I'm going to tell you, like how a local community, a small community, can get together and dream about doing something big. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's our Thank you so much, sir. It's our great honor to have you all with us today. Now I would like to request Dr. R. Murugeshwaran, sir, to start the session with your presentation.
கல் தோன்றா மண் தோன்றா காலத்திற்கு முன் தோன்றிய மூத்த தமிழுக்கு என் முதல் வணக்கம். It means my first salutation to my mother tongue Tamil language, which is one of the ancient language in the world. Respected panelist, director NIT, all the participants, scientists and eminent personalities, very good morning, namaskar and vanakkam. Before to start my presentation, I would like to give some highlights about my organization, National Medicinal Plant Board and Ministry of Ayush. National Medicinal Plant Board is working for the promotion of medicinal plant activities in different areas: cultivation, conservation, research and development, establishment of herbal gardens, organizing seminars, conferences and training programs on medicinal oriented, stakeholder like exhibitions, all those things. So it should be to medicinal work plants oriented medicinal plant activities. So this is we are giving funding for supporting for all sections. So this is one of the activities in the medicinal plant board. When we talk about the Ministry of Ayush, all the herbal systems, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, Homeopathy, and Soripa, all those things coming under the Ministry of Ayush. All the systems are having set up separate councils: Central Council for Research in Ayurveda, Central Council for Research in Siddha, Central Council for Research in Homeopathy, and the Central Council for Research in Ayurvedic Sciences. All the herbal systems councils are there, headed by Director Generals. I was belonged to Unani Council for quite long time. I worked with Unani Council for more than 23 years. For 4 years I was in Kashmir as a field scientist. Then 18 years in Tamil Nadu. I have made survey and cultivation of medicinal plants in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Kerala regions. Then 1 year after promotion, I came back to UP, Drug Standardization Research Institute. There I was for 1 year. Then last 2 years, I was in the National Medicinal Plant Board on deputation. I will be here for another 2-3 years. So this is about my background. When if we move to the herbal tourism, really, previously, as I said initially, it was started only through allopathic systems. Then wonderful treatments are in our herbal systems, Ayush system, system of medicines. So let us go through one by one why the medical tourism is necessary, what are all the activities, what are the treatments are in our systems, how it can be promoted for future activities. So all those things you will see one by one slides. Now we'll go through first slide. See, this is the, now you can see. See, overall mental tourism. Overall mental tourism, you can see that why it is important. Why it is important means it is a great concern of every individual because we have to be healthy. We have to be healthy. So that everyone interested to for keeping ourselves active and displayed. Okay. So this is the main thing. So great concern for every living being. Then next, traveling outside the country. Because once you are being here, and you will feel some change of atmosphere. Because many of the diseases, many of the disorders, it environmental oriented. Sometimes the intensity may be in winter, may be high, or summer may be. So that creates environment also one of the factor for well-being. Then, see, traveling outside country, purpose of receiving medical care, right? Then, more medical facilities at the reasonable rates, okay. Packages, because once you go through a place or any other country or region, you will get your mind stress-free. And it should be a packaged treatment, and cost of treatment also very low. Because in India, now India, many foreigners are coming here. They're taking for medical tourism, under the medical tourism, they are getting treatments. So what are the treatments, how they are getting, that we'll, one by one we'll see that. Now, now you can see medical tourism in India. Is it not changing it? Okay. So, fast growing in India, it is now in other countries, people even for South Korea, other America, people are coming for treatment in India. Why it is? Because hospitals in India, well experienced doctors and standard medical facilities. So we have very good medical facilities also in our country system. So mostly travel is offer medical tourism to the patient across the globe. The complex treatment for heart surgeries, pain management, and cosmetic surgeries. These are important areas where we are versed in the treatment. So people are preparing for the treatment in India in these areas. All this the medical tourism is major sector in tourism sector. This area one of the important factor for the promotion of medical tourism in all the areas region-wide, because some type of the area also very important. So this is another activity. Then you cannot satisfy some of the peoples. Why? Because one should have the treatment, follow-up action is very must. Because some people are there, they may take the treatment in allopathy. Finally, they said we have to follow the treatments according to the advice. But some people, what they would do not, they won't follow the proper treatment mechanism, and they will say that the treatment is not good. Then finally, then allopathy you will shift to naturopathy or any other system. There also you will play, and finally you shift to the homeopathy, and you all take the proper medication, and you say the system is not good. At last, you go to the play, then you get the treatment. So this is the activities which are going on, but the proper follow-up action and proper treatment period, it should be, we have to follow it. That is one of the important activity in the medical tourism. Now you can see why India was prepared. Why India was prepared. Advance for medical treatment in India include reduced cost. The cost wise good. Then medical technologies is good. Then you can see rich cultural heritage, personalized service, and our hospital is wonderful. So people are preferring that. Then world-class quality of treatment, waiting time, and low cost. These 5 factors impacts India become one place for medical tourism. Okay. Now, as I said, Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy. These all systems have their strength in certain disorders. Very good, because some Unani is good in skin disorders, Siddha for psoriasis, like Ayurveda, it is stomach disorders and other active places. These are very good, strong, very works good, and homeopathy also. So these areas we have to utilize it. Now, major treatments in India for people are coming other countries: cardiac treatment, orthopedic treatments, pain management, nephrology, neurosurgery, cancer, and other disorders too. Then, health and wellness system. In Ayush, based on these 5 medicinal systems, Ayush Ministry has developed some wellness centers in each states. Even each primary health centers, our traditional doctor also, medical officer also posted right now. Because all system of Ayurveda, doctor may be available, Siddha may be available, Unani may be available. So wherever you want to take what type of treatment, you can approach them. So even primary center level, all the head of the state main hospital, all the systems, herbal systems, doctors are posted there. So this is also good for one thing. Next, the concept of medical tourism, attaining medical services in the hands and taking advance their visit to strength, sightseeing, taking trips. These are all some of the activities which is to be covered in the medical tourism. See, the tourism industry was projected growth of 25% over the year for the next 10 years. This is a report says in the next 10 years, the tourism area, the sector will be more growth in the more than 25%. Quality of healthcare and affordable price. This is the main main reason we are getting the promotion in the health sectors. Promote the economy of the country. In the other way, people are coming from other countries, in different countries, and our economy also similarly getting increased. Country's economy. And you can see promote the economic country and participate in different tourism activities. So in one package, you are getting medical treatment, and other you are getting seeing places, and other you are keeping your mind stress free, and you are getting yourself rejuvenated. That is the thing. Now certain diseases treatments. What is the important treatment available in some systems? So you can see. This is massage or Panchakarma, we can in Ayurveda. They have very good treatment for the greater joint flexibility. It promotes deep easier breathing, improves circulation, blood circulation, all those things. So these are all the reduce the blood pressure. So some treatment, it has its own strength in all their systems. You can see so another type of different massage. It is paralysis, joint pain and swelling. All those things also in Ayurveda we can get treated. So the atmosphere is very important. Atmosphere means the area where you are there, rightly said, Madam also said, where the tea gardening and other things, that the place where you are medical tourism is very important. Because in Tamil one literature is there. மாசில் வீணையும் மாலை மதியமும் வீசு தென்றலும் வீங்கில வேணியும் மூசு வண்டரை பொய்கையும் போன்றதே ஈசன் என்ற நினையடி நிலை. What is the meaning? A pure morning, unpolluted evening, and day, morning, night, and the winters, all seasons to be unpolluted. It should be good water sources. It should be unpolluted, very pure climatic conditions. If you are living in such a place, that is equal to you are living nearby the God. This is the meaning. So, when you are choosing a right place and right area, region, your medical tourism will be 100% successful. Because people prefer peacefulness and the atmosphere, environment should be good. So all those things we have to take into the study when we are going for the medical tourism. So next. See, another type of treatment is Siridhara. This is also for hair fall, growing hair, even hypertension, anxiety, depression. So many areas, people are prepared for these. Even you want to get even allopathic this type of treatment. Maybe for many side effects or all those things are there. But here we can give a wonderful treatment in the packages. See, this is also another type of treatment. This is coming in especially for body and other neuromuscular disorders. Now, treatment from is another type of treatment in different areas you can go through. These are panchakarma depending upon the conditions. So you can for osteoarthritis. Arthritis is one of the major problem in India. So we are getting up to 40, 50, everyone gets this arthritis and paralysis, asthma, you know very well, cough, and facial paralysis. This is in the cosmetic wise we are getting. Then another areas for disorders such as chronic sinus. Sinus is one of the problem for many people are facing. And these are the areas where we can promote our herbal tourism and particularly the indigenous system of medicine. Now, right, yoga. The next area, if you come to the yoga and naturopathy, there are wonderful treatment is there. You can see this is some bath. It is for some medicated water is there. Then you can take the bath and all. These are separate schemes. Spinal spray bath and steam bath, all those things. These are all aromatic bath systems available, and this also you can promote in the herbal tourism. Now you can see some other areas, mud bath, circulator jet, mud bath, and some poultice massage. This is they have some poultice that they paste like that they will apply on the skin and then you will get mud bath also. That is another type of treatment which is available, and these areas we have to focus. These areas we have to promote, and we have to create the awareness among the people so that we can get our tourism sector in a nice way. Now, see, this is massage therapy. Everywhere, this is vibration massage. That is for fermentation. Now, vibro massage, you will get a different type of cureness. You can have the back pain, all those things. So now it is even available in the market also. Now, you can see this is massage therapy and okay. Now, another very important, this is my council where I was for spent more than 20 years, 23 years. So Unani, there is a regimental therapy. There is a very wonderful treatment available in the Unani system. You can see the cupping. Cupping is very good for the relieve the joint inflammations, joint pain, relaxation. It gets even that Olympic gold winner Phillips, I think, swimming. He used to take this cupping. 4 times he got the Olympic first gold medalist. So like that, wonderful facial cupping is there. You can go treatment for that. And these are very important treatment, the Unani therapies. You can see it's another dry cupping, wet cupping, fire cupping. So all those things. These people are attracted by even foreigners, other country people. They are attracted by the treatment. They are coming for India for this type of treatments. Even this fire cupping therapy is a wonderful effect for the muscular, skeletal, and cardiac disorders. All those things. It's very useful. Now you can see hammam. It is type of bath again. It is hammam type, steam bath is there. It's a massage type, another areas, and pasteurization. This also you can have the different regimental therapy, treat certain disorders, especially for destructive lesion bleedings, skin tags, warts, moles, all those things. So skin does a wonderful treatment for skin disorders, and venesection. That is also a type of another therapy in the Unani system. which removes excess of humors and rid of morbid matters. So they for blood purification, all those things. Now, Siddha. Siddha, it is from place its origin Tamil Nadu. Like Unani system, it is from Greek and it is spread all over the country, and then it comes to India. Greek, Iran and Iraq, then it comes to India, and it is spread almost all the region of our country. Siddha is Tamil Nadu. Now it's also spread in areas. Ayurveda, it is totally based in the Sanskrit. Siddha belongs to Tamil, and Unani, Urdu and Arabic literatures. So these are all the literature based. Okay. Now the documentation, you can see that it is a complete holistic medicine system that has been practiced in India for 2000 years before. That is some saints called Siddhas. That science, they have found this system. They have documented in this palm leaf. They have documented all the systems. Now the CCRS, Central Council for Research in Siddha, they are digitalizing all the Siddha classical literature. Here you can see a famous therapy is Varma. Varma means it is just points for our body. They will stimulate the particular points and they cure the disease, a type of Varma therapy. So the treatment is good. Some vital points. So we have to, they know how to stimulate the vital points. So that is for neurological problems, migraine, headache. It's wonderful treatment for in Siddha. You can take your treatments in there also. These should be concentrated in medical tourism. So people should, we have to create awareness among the people and other countries so that our patients will know about the treatment and its curative aspects. So this is also a type of therapy in Siddha that is called Takvanam. That it is also like massage type. They are doing that. Now, some of the other therapies you can see, lower back pain, it's a particular disease for that, and some plasters, is there medical plasters, external medicine for Siddha called different names, Sealite, and like that for effective relieving pains, for applying herbal poultices, that is in Siddha. Some different type of, this is a paste applying for ointments like in Siddha for called as a Kalimbu, all those things. These are all wonderful medicinal effects in certain diseases. Now, homeopathy is a different type of medicinal system. There are small molecules only, they are very low concentration. Then that is good. That is also good in certain areas. We can follow that also. Now, promotion of medical tourism in India. How we can promote, how we can go for treatment in future. One is cost factor. Number two, latest medical technologies and quality standard facilities. Then you can see, right now these are all implemented already. The Indian government has taken many steps to build the structure for medical tourism. So government also supports in different way, because you can, previously it was restricted for visa and all, now it is relaxation is there. You can come for 3 or 4 times for medical tourism to any country, like this. Deriving competence with internal coordination, visa restriction for selective country peoples. The number of medical tour packages was increased. The Indian hospitality were welcoming the medical tourism. That is wonderful. People are preparing for Indian tourism. Now, why India for medical treatment? As I already said, low cost, and this NIBH agreements also there is systems, latest medical equipment. And you can see the Ayurveda, yoga, natural therapies centers are also very working in because in all the herbal systems, the regional centers is in every states. So in all the states, the regional centers are there, and clinical research, and they are conducting for IPD, OPD, all the things so available there. So that can be utilized for the medical tourism centers. Now, see government promotion of tourism in India, making India global hub for medical tourism. Our Honorable Prime Minister also supported in many areas for India among the top medical destinations. medical visas, introduction of medical visas separately, launch for market development assistance for scheme for medical wellness tourism provides. More than 6 lakhs medical tourists visit India per annum. So all those things, you can see that highly trained personnel and cost-effective facilities. So this reason only our medical tourism in India was highlighted in many areas. So as I rightly said, we have to make we can plan for your medical tourism based on the different areas. As Dr. Kalam said, hard work and dedication is the best medicine called failure, called the disease of failure. So whatever the areas you are choosing, you have to work, you have to put your dedication and hard work. It is very important. Yes, we are sitting in the Abdul Kalam's statues there and hall we are talking about. I will give one quote, he said, any program, any scheme or any seminars like that, when it gets benefited, when successful, for example, we are conducting the Northeast Summit, when it gets benefited to the public, how you can measure the success of the programs, how you measure the success of the training program, scheme or anything. So the benefit of the scheme or training program or whatever it is, seminar, conference, when it reaches to the public, the day when it reaches to the common man in the country, when it reaches a tribal in the forest, when the benefit reaches a corner of the village person, a people from the corner of the village, that day only the program or any whatever so that gets success. So with this, I think the coming 2-3 days, the deliberations and interactions in different areas, medicinal plants and tourism and other areas, I hope that the benefits will reach the public and benefit will reach everyone, the public, and the program that will be measured the success of this program in the future days. With this, I conclude. You can start your work, whatever it is. It should be it should be a very big one. You can make it a small level and choose the area and location. This is must, and the system should be properly regulated, because many of the issues also there, proper regulation, proper follow-up and cost utilizations. All those things we have to consider in the medical tourism. With this, I conclude. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. In addition to this, I'll add some words about it, what I feel. Ayush and medical tourism is our pride of India, which we have to feel proud and accept this science completely. Why? Because every one of you have already experienced in this pandemic situation how the medical tourism, or Ayush is that much important, and every family affected. Someone want to share their views? Can you please? Yes. No, I am not telling.
Because the viruses are not that interactive in the DNA. The medicinal viruses can't find out in the medicine of a plant or anything till nowadays. It is enabled, it is very hard to extract some chemicals for that. So what is our future concern so that we find out the medicinal viruses from the plants and many other compounds which are concern us to drink, because there are huge amount of medical waste and the English medicines are huge amount producing a chemicals pollution. So what is the step government take to make a green life of medicine and low the population?
Yes.
Sorry, below the pollution of chemical.
Chemical, it is rightly said, okay. But for our Indian system of medicine, we have separate follow-up actions is there, because each systems, the medication preparation methods differs. Okay. Now we have a research program with Science and Technology, DBT, Department of Science and Technology and Ayush for finding these suitable formulations for COVID. Even this virus is infections. So that is under research. We will get a very good which I-64 and we are promoting, even we have promoted some CARDA type for immune boosters. Initially it was given that only we have to develop immunity, then the infection will be very lower. So this is one way. So one way, if you are fit, then because in our Ayush doctors, they used to go in everywhere, even COVID treatment and all, even that areas. But nobody got affected. Even the IPD also they have admitted and they are doing treatment for. But it was not because our immune system is good. If you are creating your immune system, then the infection will be lower. But chemical it is not much used in our herbal systems. So don't worry about the chemistry part, that is good. Training for what, sir? Training means you can take treatments. Training, you can training for that. You have to even council centers are there. There, the special recreation you can get some treatments and all. Not in every states we have. Even Shillong we have and other areas also. Every states Ayurveda centers are Gawati, it is there. And we are giving a project for Ayurvedic sciences. They have submitted one project for Northeast, especially for Northeast. Documentation of medicine plants available in the Northeast forest areas. For documentation, digitalization and phytochemistry, pharmacognosy activities, all those things they are doing for all 7 states. So that proposal is received and we are reviewing that. So we are going to support for that in this year also, particularly for Northeast states. So many of the students are here. So you have to think novel. You see, even we are having very good infrastructures, scientists, lecturers, but still we are not able to come out with good results. We are failing for many of the areas. What is the reason? Where we are lacking? See, I worked in more than 7 or 8 organizations. So in that, what I found is we are very much lacking in the time management. Time management is very important for your success. Because 24 hours you are getting per day. So let it also think, even government says for 8 hours to work. Even I can say if you are working without distraction and disturbance, 6 hours for your work, you will be succeeded. So time management, keep in mind. At least we are spending for our timing in the social media for hours together. It should not be. So we have to go our subject or our area, more and more information we have to collect and we have to study, we have to work dedicatedly and put little hard work. Definitely you will come up. Yes. CSS hospitals are there. It is in ministry, they are going to increase it. It is there. It is there. In Tamil Nadu also we have in our Chennai, we have CSS hospitals. Rajasthan, Jaipur, we have. Because CSS doctors are also working. They are also coming under Ayush. They are also shifted to transfer for every 3 years. Centers are limited, but it should be increased. You are right. Yes, ma'am. No. We have the standardization because each system, that is why the research councils are there. They have one particular section, drug standardization unit. Because they work fully standardization. After standardization only, it goes for, it includes phytochemistry, pharmacognosy studies and microbiology. All those things. After that only, we are preparing a protocol. and pharmacopoeia, Ayurveda pharmacopoeia, and Siddha pharmacopoeia. These are after standardization only it comes. For that only that Pharmacopoeia Commission of Indian Medicine, it is in Ghaziabad. So they are working on in these areas. Whatever any issues, the clinical studies to be taken up, and they are finalizing the pharmacopoeias, each systems. Yes.
So good morning, sir.
Good,
I'm
yeah.
Mutana from Gurucharan College, Chelsea. Sir, I have a question. Like, is there any treatment
Hmm.
for cancer in homeopathy? Like, there is a chemotherapy given to patients in allopathy. So, is there any therapy?
Therapy, we cannot say therapy as said. They can give the boosting your immunity. So because still even integral medicines, this traditional medicine and also for allopathy, English medicine, modern medicine, both are together. Integrated way treatment will be good for cancer. Yeah. Even we are also even some centers are in there. They are working at traditional system medicine, Ayurvedic system. They work with modern system, and both treatment is being given for the cancer patients, and they are getting successful results. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wise information about medical plants. Sir, she has a question.
Good morning, sir. So, how Ayurveda can be helpful in the treatment of diabetes and low cholesterol? Like, people of India could avoid it easily.
You have to change your lifestyle. That is all I can say first. Because our lifestyle is very, very poor. We are forgetting our traditional food, and traditional way of cooking, all those things. Now we are modernizing. We are taking cooked foods. We need everything. So that is the reason. So we have to slowly go back to our ancient period. So we have to follow the ancient foods. Financial means? These council I said now, Ayurvedic, Siddha, all the councils, the treatment is free, no cost. And paid treatment also there, but mostly for even every OPD every day, 300, 500,000 patients used to get. In Unani systems, Ayurvedic, Sarita Vigar Delhi, on Ayurvedic National Institute of Ayurveda is there. If you go there, you can have a wonderful treatment there, free of cost. Even COVID vaccination is they are also doing free of cost, and all the type of doctors in Ayurvedic experts are there. Like that in Jaipur, National Institute of Ayurveda in Jaipur also there. Like that homeopathy in Calcutta, and Unani in Bangalore, National Institute of Unani Medicine in Bangalore, and Siddha in Tamil Nadu, National Institute of Siddha in Tamil Nadu. So each area, region-wise, centers are there. You can take treatment on free of cost. This is the Ayush government's wonderful activity in the traditional system of medicine. It is under process. It is under process. Actually, in our system, in Ayush Ministry also wants to take up the medical tourism. They are planning for even Andaman, Goa. So the area should be attractive one. So this is under discussions. Maybe in the future days we will get government medical tourism places also.
Why not India promoting our government promoting nuclear medicine for cancer and other virus-like treatments?
No, this is under research. Now we are in CSR institutions and Ayush. We have some researches on process, and we will come out with some good research in the future days.
Sir, what many countries successful in their research is starting this type of.
India actually in some areas we have to develop ourselves. So for Indian system of medicine, traditional system, we have tie up with some GSR institutions and research is under progress. We will get some good research in future days, surely.
Is there any provision to support the traditional healers?
Traditional healers, it is always there is one section is separately there. They can, it depends upon their experience and their successful implementation. They can work their areas. But for our side, we can provide some sort of training programs, like we can we giving support for training program for farmers or training program for awareness schemes, awareness training program. They can conduct some awareness training program if they are expert in certain areas. That can be given to the public. So for that we will support.
Because in Northeast, good number is there.
Okay. Even more number of tribals also in Northeast. More than 200 tribal communities are here. So that is a very good start. They know very the folk medicinal uses. That also, because I worked on that folk medicinal plants. Karnataka, we have published a number of volumes for folk medicinal uses, and very good information whatever we are getting, and that should be taken to the clinical research for drug discovery active actions. So that also under progress. We have.
Communication part you have mentioned earlier.
Yes.
That has been done earlier also.
Documentation done, but where we are failing, it should go shift into clinical research. The documentation should be clinically studied, toxicologically proved. That particular drug, particular information is affects the efficacy of the drug compared to our clinical research and compared to our the classical literature of traditional systems. So that should be studied. Then only the particular documentation gets value.
DRDO Tech Tool has done the research and documentation on the Himalayan medicines, which are growing about 10,000 feet in Himalayan area, and that is particularly for the armed forces. Edible herbs are there.
Okay.
The documentation is very interesting.
High altitude medicinal plants, we have supported one institute in Ladakh. They are giving projects supported. They are working on high altitude medicinal plants for the Himalayan region. And apart from that, we have regional facilitation centers, RCFC. They are also working, and 30 to 36 SMBBs, state medicinal plant boards. They are also working behind this work. Yes. This is a wonderful area where we can, in the future, very good progress medical tourism.
Does anyone have any queries?
So what is the future of type 1 diabetes, and is there any alternative for insulin?
For that, all the system have very good medicines. Even Unani, we have very good medicines. Ayurvedic science, they are having research on that diabetes. Type 1, type 2, both. Wonderful medicines are there. You can, if you consult any centers, research centers of these Ayush, Ayurveda, Siddha, homeopathy, you can get it.
Sir, if someone is totally insulin dependent, can he use medicines or is incurable without insulin?
Yes, of course. Why not? Definitely. You have to follow the medications according to the doctor's prescription, and they will guide you. Good medicines are there. Diabetes become very everywhere. No as per age or nothing. It is everyone. No, actually there is a bachelor degree is there. Ayurveda, BAMS and Unani BUMS like that, homeopathy. So the bachelor degree, one should complete the bachelor degree and specialization for in PG, MD. So that is must. It's must. Because now almost all the doctors are MD. Eye system. Their MD is preferable for appointment as a scientist one, research officer in a concerned sections. So MD is mandatory now. Entrepreneur, they can hire a doctor. They can hire a doctor because entrepreneur may have some ideas. They may have financially sound, or they can develop some good centers in certain northeast or somewhere in isolated areas where you can get the good environment and the stress-free place. So that time you can hire a doctor and develop the center. That will be nice. So the Siddha, specialized Ayurvedic treatments, even you can mix together also centers. Leech therapy is there. In Srinagar, there is frostbite, too much in the winter season, frostbite disease. For that, their leech therapy is using leeches. Like that, different kinds of treatments are available. This is Amam. People are coming for Amam. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. As the next generations or coming days, it is our what I mean to say, it's our responsibility to promote this. Why? Because as in, I can say my family also everyone affected, like my mom, my dad, diabetic, my mom has a neural problem. Like what we do, usually we'll go to a medical hospital. We won't prefer, we need instant medicines, we need instant recovery. Please, we'll try to follow these things. I am so happy to have this wise information in today's session. Thank you so much, sir. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Anjana Parshad, ma'am. Please share your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murugesan. This was such a wonderful, informative presentation that you did, and we couldn't have enough of it. We wanted the session to go on, and my session is going to be slightly lighter, but I have limited number of PPTs. These are only directional. I expect this session to be a little more discussion based. I hope we can take it from there. Also, in spite of me wanting to be here, I have a flight at immediately after the session. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. The topic for today's session was harnessing economic potential of eco-services, herbal, cultural and ethnic tourism. This completely translates into what Dr. Murugesan has been saying since morning. There is so much that India can offer. India has to offer. So what does it translate to for me? It says that maybe we are looking at alternative forms of tourism. When we think of tourism, we think of going to great places and we think of having good time. So probably we think of places like, and which are the aspirational tourism places? We all think of probably, okay, ideal tourism place would be Dubai, or UK, or US, or France maybe. So we think of places which are very different from the places that we're used to, we are staying. Okay, those are dream destinations. And when we say that we want to develop tourism in our destination, then probably we are talking of replicating those, those destinations in one way or other. So is this what is important to us? Is this what is the road ahead for us? Is this what we should be promoting? So probably the road ahead should be something that is more familiar to us. So when Dr. Murugesan talks of medical tourism, what one has experienced till now is foreigners coming to those established high-end Western style allopathic centers. Those are the ones, those are the hospitals that get most money. Okay, and to the extent that the hospitals in Delhi no longer entertain us Indian customers. There's always, and there's a separate division which is medical tourism division. And we are sort of treated as secondary level customers. So is this, so while this is what medical tourism is to foreigners, a lot of information that Dr. Murugesan shared today morning is not even available to us. It's not known to us. So whose fault is it? Probably ours. Not only are we not utilizing these systems, we are not even promoting them. So it's vice versa as well. We're not promoting them, we don't utilize them ourselves. So how much confidence will we have in these systems ourselves if we're not utilizing them? With how much confidence can we market those? So probably what one is looking at is alternative forms of tourism where we promote ecologically sensitive, responsible tourism. That's not too resource heavy. We're also talking of tourism that utilizes locally available, resource-friendly facilities. It's also adaptable and sustainable, both environmentally as well as culturally. So probably this is the tourism that may be the future that one is looking at. So when one is talking internationally, probably one is talking of how does one benchmark various destinations. So I looked at the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index. This is year 2019, just before COVID, because COVID derailed practically all data. So we are, for all practical purposes, we are looking at what it was in normal scenario. So I looked at some countries that I would like to, which are aspirational for me. So I looked at Australia, which is at world number 7. Spain happens to be world number 1. New Zealand, which is 18. Malaysia, which is 29. And where does India lie? India lies at 34 number. And that is step up. This is 2019 data. And the parameters on which it was measured, this data was calculated was, I would say USP. USP would be cultural USP, natural. What does tourists go to experience to a destination? Tourists either goes to look at the environment, the natural capital, or the cultural capital. And of course, for any tourist, what is absolutely important is tourism infrastructure. Now, what we mean by tourism infrastructure is, different from, we might have a difference of opinion. You might think tourism infrastructure is a 5-star hotel. Somebody else might think a homestay is also tourism infrastructure, right? Our air network is tourism infrastructure. Our road connectivity is also tourism infrastructure. A Mercedes-Benz is infrastructure as well as a normal Maruti, whatever CC, it's also tourism infrastructure. So, but what one is saying is that when the world benchmarking happens, all these factors are taken into consideration, and India falls under 34. But if you just look at the USP part of it, India is equal to the best. In this list, the topmost list is Australia. Australia has a USP of 5.5 plus 4.4. Natural and cultural. India has 4.4 plus 5.5, so similar to the best. And yet, we are at 34th number. We are way, way, way behind. Accessibility, of course, we definitely lack as far as air infrastructure and rail and road network is concerned. Carrying capacity. Are we saying that a country of the size of India doesn't have the carrying capacity? the number of tourists a small city like Paris gets is more than the number of tourists that whole of India gets. So definitely there's something, in spite of our billion number population, definitely there's a lot of carrying capacity that India can still afford. Yet we fall down in sustainability parameters. So there's something which is definitely not matching up. In spite of our huge populations which is spread all across the country, but we still have pockets where there's enough place where tourists can be accommodated. We have states like Goa, where the tourist is 4x. For every one Goan, we have 4 times the number of tourists. And we have states like Meghalaya, where for every tourist, the aspiration is that for every resident, we should be having at least 1 tourist. That becomes an ideal situation, right? We don't even get those numbers. Assam is slightly better. It's probably for every one resident, one Assamese resident, you have about 0.5, 0.75 number of tourists. But then there's certainly, a lot of gap. Whole of Northeast, there's a lot of carrying capacity which is still available. Travel and tourism prioritization. Is it an important sector at all for the governments, for the private sector? This is where you can see that prioritization-wise, even though Australia, New Zealand are doing extremely well, or probably the reason for them doing extremely well is they are a high priority sector for their governments. Whereas India, we are falling short. This is where countries like Malaysia and Thailand also score. Their prioritization by the government is much more than what the support Indian industry is getting from the government. And then finally, the last one is ease of doing business, the enabling environment. So this benchmarking of Indian tourism industry does reveal a lot of things. Now, what are the global trends? What is a tourist looking for? Why I've taken global trends in ecotourism is because looking at Northeast, if we are so low on infrastructure, what is it that we are high on? So we are definitely high on the environmental aspect. So anybody, to me, ecotourism is something which involves ecologically, environmentally sensitive tourism, where infrastructure heaviness is not what matters to the tourist. So if we look at the worldwide trends, we have these wonderful examples. Costa Rica, they have 25% rainforest. And if you actually went back to the last table, Costa Rica also features very high on a travel and tourism index, which captures 120 countries. So it's in the lowest, it's in the first 50s. For a country which is such a small size country, for them to feature in the first 50 is a huge achievement. So Costa Rica has, what is the USP? They have forests, they have rainforests. Something similar to what our Northeast has. Iceland, what do they sell? They sell clean, fresh air. And they don't construct mega buildings. What does Kenya sell? Kenya says that the Delhi pollution is, telling me the capacity of my lungs. Okay, so Kenya says that they use local population to take care of their resources. The local community has got together to work against poachers. This is something which Manas, Partha will also speak on and talk about in detail. We have a wonderful success story at Manas. Then what does Palau talk of? They utilize their seaside resources. And similarly, Nepal. Even that fares better than us in quite a few offering us best practices. Cambodia, Vietnam, New Zealand. Why have I looked at these? Because they are very, very similar to what we already have. And if these countries, these places can be successful, there's no reason why we shouldn't be looking at a very, very positive tourism future. Because to my mind, Northeast fulfills all these requirements. None of these places are talking of resource-heavy infrastructure. Of course, we all know who this is. The topic today is herbal tourism, and the first person who flashed into my mind was our own Hanumanji. Things are much, much easier for us these days. We don't really have to fly. and go in search of destinations. We are ably assisted by our industry. But looking at some case studies, how has herbal tourism or forest-based tourism or ecotourism survived till now, even without much support from the various enablers? Kerala, God's own country. I have taken, Kerala is famous for quite a few things, few USPs, but I have taken a Kerala example here because of their affiliation and promotion of herbal tourism as an Ayurvedic tourism. And the best part is, Ayurveda did not originate in Kerala. In fact, and the way they have packaged and sold it is, a case study in itself. They've perfected it, adopted it, built it, practiced it, and then finally sold it. And today they have market dominance. And look at the beautiful infrastructure that they've created. It's something which is very traditional, and quite a few times that adds so beautifully to the whole experience of what the tourist takes away. So again, a case in point of what Dr. Murugan was talking of. There's a possibility of creating big business out of non-great resource-heavy hospitals or infrastructure. Kerala again, for also packaging other aspects, other products, creating products, tourism products out of things which are already available. So the the topmost picture is Munnar, tea gardens. And then of course the spices, available elsewhere too, they're available northeast too. But the way Kerala has packaged them and sold them, Goa also has spices, but it hasn't reached anywhere near what Kerala has achieved. Another country which has gone very heavy in promoting herbal tourism is Sri Lanka. They've today got market dominance of spice tourism. Did they invent spices? Not really. Are they the biggest traders in spices? Not really. India is bigger. And yet, in tourism circles, anybody who wants to come to see a spice garden, the destination is Sri Lanka. It's offering us a huge competition. So how did they manage to do it? By marketing properly, by packaging it properly, by maintaining standards and qualities. Not the spices, but the tourism product. So if you think it's only countries that can do that, we also have examples of Western countries. So we have Nordic community, Denmark, where they package and sell their, only available, limited number of available spices. And similarly, we have Hungary, where they only have paprika. So they say slice of life and spice of life paprika. Just imagine if we were to go after every spice that we have, we would have so many taglines. Similarly, Malaysia, Penang, they have tropical spice garden as a very important tourism destination, an attraction. So if we think it's only the countries that can be successful and we really need the government support, then let's look at some private sector case studies. And I bring to you a case study from Assam. Sonitpur district, Balipada. Have I gone wrong with this district part? Okay. Wild Mahasir is a tea garden. I don't know how many of you know about this case study, but it's doing exceedingly well, and it's on all our friend circles. This is a dream destination on everybody's bucket list. So what have they done? Besides showing us what tea is like, the city kids, how tea is grown, because to us all city kids, everything is made in factories, right? Nothing comes out of plants, because we've never seen fields, we've never seen plants. So they've, of course, perfected the art of tea garden tourism, which is a class apart. Tea garden tourism is a luxury product, okay, an experiential product. But they also got connected to the tribal village headman who provides the village experience. So how beautiful combination. One of the problems is, the biggest problem in tourism is to acquire a customer, okay. But once a customer comes, the second largest problem in our country is how do you maximize the benefit of the customer. So here, in fact, this was the subject of this was a finding of my PhD, where every customer has a budget in his mind, okay, And marketers all across the world try and maximize the budget. So if a tourist is thinking of spending $1, so marketers try and make him spend $1.50. In our country, if a tourist has thought that he would want to spend $1, he ends up spending only 0.75 because he doesn't have options to spend it on. So here, what a wonderful way of offering those many experiences. Our problem is not just acquiring a customer, but making him stay for so many days so that the benefit maximizes. Wild Mahasir has accomplished it exceptionally well, where average stay of the customer is almost 5 days, 5 nights. That's saying a lot. And especially when the room rate is about 14,000 plus every night, that's good money. How about looking at our own Patanjali? So when Kerala succeeds, how can Patanjali not go after it? Excellent marketing study where they have, they gained their fame because of something else. And yet, their spice garden, their herbal garden is equally well visited these days. So tourism is another manner. Little Flower Farms. A small little farm in Pondicherry. I'm slightly confused. Pondicherry or Kerala? I'm not very sure. Auroville. A botany professor decides that she wants to share her knowledge. And then here comes a homestay and a beautiful resort and medicinal plants and exceptionally beautiful experiential experience. And then a long line of customers who are wanting to visit her. Tourism to the best of its abilities. So what does it, all these small case studies that I showed was just to instigate a thought. What's the roadmap for us? The roadmap is understand what the customer wants. We know that there is a customer for the alternate form of tourism that we're thinking of. There's a customer for wanting to come and visit us. Customers are tired of going to the same hotel room, which looks exactly same in Delhi, Mumbai, Agra, Guwahati, etc., etc. We no longer want to experience that. We are tired of looking at artificially curated, manufactured attractions. Probably we do not want to visit another amusement park. Okay, what is it that we're looking at? We're looking at beautiful, authentic experiences. And what does Northeast have, if not authenticity? In every aspect. So whether it's herbs, whether it's plants, whether it's traditions, whether it's tribes, ethnic tourism, cultural tourism, music tourism, dance tourism, traditions, the area is full of them. So what is needed? Needed is just pick up out of the 1,000 experiences that you can probably offer or products that can be offered in any of these sectors. Pick up the top 10 lowest hanging ones and let's begin with them. One thing which I want to highlight is service standards are absolutely non-negotiable. And this is where probably we Indians falter. We do not understand servicing standards. It doesn't come naturally to us because tourist needs are slightly different from the needs of the customers, from the needs of the residents. So it requires a little training and it requires guidelines for us, the service providers, because Atithi Devo Bhava, probably no longer. Because we also have seen a scenario where the Atithi actually thinks that he's a Dev and he doesn't think twice before spoiling our destinations. The Atithi no longer thinks that, there is a responsibility that he or she also carries. And we, the service providers, we, the service industry, goes out all the way to please the Atithi. So this is the latest mantra that my Responsible Tourism Society of India has undertaken. This is our latest campaign where we say that while it's important for the rest of the industry, tourism is not just an industry, it's a sector which is congregation of multiple sectors. So till now we've been saying responsible business, responsible hotel, responsible tourism service provider. Okay, probably responsible and sustainable transportation. And we always left out the final stakeholder, which is the traveler. This year on World Tourism Day, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, Responsible Tourism Society of India, and United Nations Environment Programme, all of us signed a MOU where we decided that tourism business can no longer be left only as Atithi Devo Bhava. For Atithi Devo Bhava, it's very important that the Atithi also is a Dev. So here comes a new mantra, probably Prakriti Devo Bhava. And then the new mantra is, I have to know what is right for my destination. So I have to know that littering is not right, and I should have the confidence to tell the customer that, hey, this is allowed and it's not. I have to know that this cultural practice is not right for my destination because it dilutes my cultural identity. And then I create a guideline. I as a destination owner, I as a service provider, I as a tourism service provider decides what is right for us. And then we convey to the Atithi. So guidelines are very important along with service standards. And then we all agree to follow those guidelines. This is probably my second last or third last slide. Northeast is a hub of knowledge, traditional. Let's identify the most marketable one. Let's package it well. Create a visible experiential circuit, because that's what sells. A tourist goes for a circuit. Let's train the local community. Let's train all of us to provide services of excellent caliber, excellent standard. Let's establish service standards and guidelines for both tourists and ourselves. And let's market it through established and new channels. RTSOI would be happy to collaborate, join hands with all of you to create a viable, sustainable business proposition involving herbal tourism in northern India, especially in Barak Valley. Because, just to give an introduction, there are 3 pillars that we stand for. RTSOI stands for sustainability, and it says that it's our responsibility to make the business of tourism sustainable. So we are a single point sustainability resource for the tourism industry, all the stakeholders of tourism industry, whether it's government, whether it is tourism accommodation providers, that means hotels, homestays, community-based tourism, or even tour operators and tourist service providers. So we are a single, and academicians. So single point sustainability resource center is what we do. That's how we advise the various governments to create various policies. We are also a guidelines, standards and certification body for the tourism industry. And we are the harbinger of the idea of responsible traveler, because responsible tourism is our collective responsibility. What is responsible travel? We all know that. Something which minimizes our footprint. Let's not leave the planet dirtier than what we've received, how we've inherited it. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer questions if there are any.
So you mentioned somewhere in your numbers carrying capacity, right? Is for hill states like Meghalaya, carrying capacity the right benchmark, or per capita spending like Bhutan the right benchmark? Because, if Meghalaya were to get even 1:1, I know usable area would be swamped, and the revenues per tourist is hardly, because the problem in Meghalaya is we get very low budget tourists, but it uses up huge amount of resources. Whereas if you look at Bhutan, because they put a charge to it, per capita spending of each tourist, but they are not swamped with that kind of tourism.
So your question is a loaded one. It's a heavy question, and it was many aspects. So, all said and done, it's been found that tourism does have a minimal footprint as compared to other livelihood generation activities. So if you look at, which industry is the best, probably, for all of us have to earn livelihood. So probably tourism is the best. Okay. Now tourism done right. So we have all hill stations, we have a problem of traffic jams, resource. So when one says Meghalaya, one doesn't mean Shillong. Okay? So when one equates Meghalaya with Shillong, carrying capacity is a problem. But when one equates Meghalaya as a whole state, Khasi Hills, Garo Hills, Jaintia, etc., and spread the tourism pie, that will involve creating a lot of experiential, activities. Then probably carrying capacity of one is not a bad number. Thank you. This is an interesting question.
Promote that over per capita spending.
No, we always say that, see, today's tourist is willing to spend. Okay, that's the reason you have standardization of services. We haven't given enough options to the tourist. So the tourist, every tourist who goes to Meghalaya from Assam and does morning evening, the tourist is not going to do only morning evening. He doesn't have those options. So if we give them options, then that same tourist will be converted to a tourist who stays there for 4 days. So per capita income would be increased. Spending would be increased. Yeah. So one is not saying this versus another. One is saying let's increase our offerings so that tourist has enough number of activities to do and is able to spend more. So per capita income of Meghalaya increases with minimal footprint.
Can you give some ideas status of competition in internal and international level? Competition.
Sir, I didn't get this. Please repeat the question.
In tourism, the status of competition in national level and international level. How you are feeling in tourism? Competition is too high or how you are? Because there are many empty agencies are the tourism agencies. How they are performing well?
Sir, competition is good. I don't think competition has been a problem with industry here in India because there's enough number of tourists who want to travel, and the tourism pie, hopefully, if we cancel the COVID thing, COVID has changed all our behavior, and we're seeing very strange situation where there's a revenge tourism where competitors are there. Yeah. But what is in tourism sector? So tourism, a lot of competition is there, but we don't think that the competition is something which is negative because the urge to travel is there in all of us. So more number of tourism, more number of competitors, more number of people are traveling. So it's not a problem.
My suggestion also is we have to give some attractive offers for the packages. So that will be attract the passions also public of people. So they will come forward.
So that's a finer point which comes later in the marketing. Once you create a marketing scenario proposition, then that's a finer point, and that's a smaller point. What tourists, the kind of tourist that probably one is looking at is a high value tourist, and a person has a mental budget. So if a mental budget is 1 lakh, spending 1 lakh rupee on a holiday, probably you can give him a discount of where he or she spends 90,000. But as of now today, the problem is that a tourist wants to spend 1 lakh rupee, but he doesn't even have opportunity to spend, let's say, 20,000. So then the discounts and incentives may not necessarily work. Or even if they work, our takeaway from undertaking the whole activity is still less. So my final statement is Responsible Tourism Society of India is a non-profit society. It's open to membership. It is a people's body. So I invite all of you to look at our website, join us as a movement, as an organization. Yes, the governments are members, governments are patron members. So I request Manas, Parth, I always call you Manas. Okay, so because that's the best thing that can happen. If people begin knowing me as responsible tourism, I'd be very happy. But Parth being associated with the Assam government, I'm requesting to become our members. We have MP becoming our member, we have Himachal, we have Meghalaya, etc., etc. But it's also individuals who can become members, and it's also institutions, everybody, because it's a people's movement. So please look us up, please join us, please have a say. It's all our business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. By running over many things, I think many of us overlooked so many, like choosing foreign tourism than our country beautiful places. I hope it will change. At least some of us can change this. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I'd like to invite Shri Nilanjan Roy sir to start his presentation.
So how bored or interested are you, all of you? It's been a long, long day. So depending on that, I'm going to run through the presentations or, spend enough time. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour? Show of hands, what? 15? Okay. Okay, anyway. So again, most of my slides are very directional in nature. I would like to keep this session interactive. Like, for example, see, one thing I strongly believe in is today the knowledge paradigm has shifted. When I started working many, many years back, my boss knew the best. And we as juniors went with a notepad in front of our boss and we kept on taking notes. Today the knowledge paradigm is shifted. The junior most guy, he knows the best. We seniors can just provide guidance with our experience. Knowledge-wise, we just don't know enough. You guys know enough. And that's why this session, I would want more interaction from you. Question me, correct me, whatever you feel like, right? So I'm going to take a slightly different topic from this. So I'm going to talk of mostly jobs and how IT is an enabler in this, right? Okay, again, going through this thing, all of us know about these are fancy terms, IoT, smart grid, smart city. But what do you mean by smart? For example, I don't know, any of you are students of computer science? Okay. So, long years back when we started coding, I learned coding about 25 years back. To do a simple thing, as to write a line of code, which was like probably 100 lines long, right? Today the same thing can be executed in about 2 or 3 lines of code. Why is that relevant today? That 2-3 lines of code uses a lot more lesser resources. For computing, the biggest carbon footprint that is left is processing power. Your data centers, the biggest cost there is cooling power. And when you put cooling there, your AC, electricity, that leaves behind the biggest thing. While we are running our best to convert everything into IT, everything should get smarter to use lesser resources, lesser computing power, lesser memory power. Right? And that's why getting things smart is very, very relevant. How do we get things smarter? How do we use lesser resources? How do we do things in the lesser number of lines of code so that we use lesser number of resources? See, for example, when you sit in an office and you're coding or doing any work, if you don't do smart work and you spend more time in offices, what happens? Electricity, your AC, you're using up a lot more natural resources. And those are things that really harm the environment. While we talk about ecosystem, but we spend, unwittingly, we are increasing number of gadgets in our house, using more and more electricity there. And that's something we just do not look at. Okay, let's go on to a future of work. What's the scenario we're looking at? And most of my slides are taken from public sources. The sources are given at the end of the presentation. I'll leave my presentations behind so you can study further. This is from a PwC study. The future of work in year 2030 is going to get divided into 4 different quadrants. The first quadrant is what we call as the yellow world, where humans come first. Okay. This world, most of the jobs that are going to get created around this are social first, community-based businesses, crowdfunding, capital flows. But I'm going to run through this because I want to focus on the green world and the companies care. Right? The other world is going to be the smart world, where there are going to be a lot of innovations there, a lot of startups going to come, digital platforms are going to give competition to traditional businesses which leave behind huge carbon footprints. The other world is the blue world, where big corporates will rise. They traditionally will stay. So that is something we cannot do something. But the most important one, and where most of the jobs will come from, is the green world. which is social responsibility, corporate agenda. There will be demographic changes, climatic changes. So that will become key drivers for business. Every business will look at, climate changes. They will look at jobs that will, prevent climate change. How do you want to do this? Do you want me to run through all the slides, or in between you want to ask me questions and then I want to? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Again, I'm sorry about this pixelization because I've just picked this pics up from the internet. I didn't have time. But 18th century, we said that how can we make money out of the environment? 19th century, when logging came in, we said how can we make money out of the environment? 20th century, again we were saying that how can we make money out of the environment? Right? But the 21st century has changed. Here we are looking at how can we make money out of green products? How can we make money out of greening the environment back? So the commercialization, capitalization does not go anywhere. No one is saying we turn socialist and say, we still want to make money, people want to get rich. But the way to get rich can be still, and it's still sustainable. Great. So just to get a clarification, what are green jobs? And this definition is the ILO definition. Again, I don't want to read the, what's written in the, most of you can read this, right? That's the definition of green jobs. Okay. The Green Initiative, this was started by the ILO in 2007, the International Labour Organization, the UN Environmental Program, all of them are involved in. One is classifying the skills required for green jobs. Also, the sectors where these skills are relevant, and they're also getting a role directory of what roles are required and role to skill mapping. This is available on the ILO site, you can have a look at that. Okay. This is very important because as students, you need to start preparing for those roles and get trained on the skills, what those roles will require. Right? Have a look at the ILO site, this will give you a pretty detailed. Okay, this is a quote. Again, green jobs obviously reduce environmental impact. Green jobs can be found at all skill levels. From a farmer working in the forest to R&D engineer, to example I gave to a person coding in a thing. So green jobs can be everywhere. It is not just an environmentalist, has green jobs. It will be across sectors. Again, green jobs and green skills. Okay, some examples I've taken here. I've just put in some examples. Bicycle repair, bicycle delivery, truck to mechanical jobs, okay, related to biodiesel, green buildings, waste management, hazardous metal cleanup, plumbing for hydronics, boilers, printing with non-toxic inks. I'm just running through these, right? But what is the overriding thing in this, the green jobs and skills that is required? It is not just in the environmental sector. That is something I want to just re-emphasize. These green jobs and the green roles and the green skills will be across all job roles, across the industry by 2030. And all of us need to get ready for these jobs. Because if you aren't ready, those jobs, you just won't be able to get into those jobs. Okay, what skills are needed? Traditionally, the skills that are required to get into any jobs: interviewing skills, resume writing, conflict resolution, communication skills, relationship building, appearance, right? But in the new green, what is required? Number one is customer service. And when I mention the skills that is required, this is not just a front office facing job, this is right across sectors. Teamwork. There's not going to be individuals are going to disappear, teams are going to do work. And with the COVID situation, we know now that teams across distributed geographies, across time zones are going to have to be working together, collaborating together. the individual will be gone. Because the individual always uses up a lot more resources to do a task. When a team does a task, it's a lot more efficient. The responsibility to triple the bottom line, so the bottom line is not going to be, so every company's balance sheet is going to have, you know what a balance sheet is, right? Profit and loss and balance sheet, right? The new balance sheet, which was introduced about 10 years back, is also, your human resources. You put a cost to your human resources, the value of your human resources. But tomorrow, all balance sheets are going to contain the social impact, the environmental impact, and the economic impact you're going to have on the community and the environment. Another thing that is going to be required is you need a global community approach. You just don't need to think about Silchar. You don't need to think about Assam. You need to think globally. So these are skills that will be required. Globally, what kind of impact I'll have. You have to have an analytical approach, because anything you do, just a qualitative approach won't do. You have to quantify it with data. Because if you for example, Narayan Murthy had said, I trust only God, and rest of you have to produce data. Right? You have to quantify everything with this. So analytical thinking, be it even a humanities field, analytical thinking is required. You will have to quantify everything with some data, saying that, okay, this is what we... And this is not an exhaustive list. I've just tried listing down a few, what I came to my mind. Okay, some roles, and these are just examples I picked up. For example, renewable market specialist. Right? This is a role that is required. In fact, let me give you an example. Just the other day, I met a neighbor of mine, and this person had just passed out college. He passed out from a very prestigious college. I asked him, so, his name is Gaurav. I said, Gaurav, what are you doing these days? So Gaurav tells me he's become a motivational drummer. I said, what the hell is a motivational drummer? I've heard of a drummer. I knew his drumming skills were nothing great to talk about or anything like that. So you know what he does? So today, with the pandemic time, mental health becomes a big, big issue for everyone thinks. So he's created this basement there, where executives come in and he provides this drum, and on the top of the drum he pastes his boss's picture. You can paste your boss's picture and you can start beating the drum with whatever little skill there. It's a way of letting off the tension. He has dartboards in his studio where he can point out, So again, it's very, very green. I'm just giving an example of what Gaurav has done. And it's sustainable. He's collecting money for a US MBA. He earns close to about 3.5 lakh rupees a month after all costs. Okay. Very, very innovative approach. So all I'm saying is it does not have to be, limited to what I've written here. All of you can create. See, he looked at the opportunity. COVID was an opportunity. There was a lot of mental pressure building up in a lot of executives, from job losses to everything else, around industry slowing down. He took that opportunity and he created this. And it's a great social service is doing, whereas he's still earning money, right? So the new roles that are going to come into the industry are not going to be the traditional role, where after engineering you join in as a management, engineer or something like that. They're going to complete, or you have to create the new roles. You have to be pitching yourself to companies, saying that, hey, this is what I can do. Maybe like I said, what Gaurav did, you go to a company, Larsen & Toubro, and say, hey, I'm a motivational drummer. I can help. I'm an engineer. Engineering has taught me quantitative skills and all of those skills, but I can help reduce the, stress level in all your employees. It's a great pitch, right? So again, how you write your resume and how you pitch yourself tomorrow to tomorrow's employees, very, very relevant. Because traditional roles are going to disappear. Most roles are not going to be there. For example, coding. When we used to write code, see today most frameworks are there. All you have to do is just join microservices there, right? So just basic coding as a job will disappear. You have to find out new jobs which are more cognitive in nature, which are more caring in nature, which are more environment friendly in nature. So this delivered to a student? So all this is big talk on a presentation, right? But what do you do about it? Great, I'm gone today, but how do you do about it, right? So these are things, sustainable development course, for example. I think a lot of foreign universities have this as, additional credits you can take even with the engineering course. But I'm not too sure if NIT has something like that. IIT Delhi definitely has something like that. But you can always pitch it, or there are enough resources available online. Definitely take a sustainable development course and get a credit. Maybe on Coursera or Udemy or something like that. Take up a course like that. Next is activity-based learning. Right? So I'm sure in this city somewhere someone is doing some project. Right? Go and take that up in your as an internship. Go and work with that person. Get some experience there. Those experiences are really, really valuable. If tomorrow all of you guys are thinking of doing a MS in the US university, see, what will matter is not your CGPA scores here. What will be, they'll look at is a holistic person, someone who's environmentally friendly, someone who has a global perspective, because they expect you to bring to the class. Everyone brings an engineering score, everyone brings a CGPA score, right? But what else extra do you bring in where you value add to the class? So these are things you must do. The last one is, employment connections, which is, see, most jobs are got through networking. Jobs are not got through applications or campus interviews. The best jobs are not got through campus interviews. The best jobs are got through how much connections you have in the industry. Whom are you networking with? This is a great opportunity. You have a lot of experts coming in here. I'm sure you will have other symposiums happening like this in your institute. Definitely start networking with people. See what they are doing. Keep in touch with them. Say that, can you offer me short-term projects? I'm interested in this line. Can I help you during my summers in something like this? And they would be more than willing to give you even short-term internships. And internship, you don't have to travel. You can sit here in the institute and do some work here. So networking is very, very important. And all of this I'm mentioning in the perspective of green jobs, because that's where the next challenge is going to come in. Okay, I'll skip this one. Okay, hands-on learning. So mostly I've covered live installation, instructional profs, service learning projects, field trips, visits from industry representatives. Employment connections, what I talked about, job shadowing. When you spot a role which you know, which is something you are interested in, learn more about the role, shadow the job, learn all the skills required for the job, develop a resume or a job portfolio according to the role, develop the soft skills that are required for the role, practice your interviews, right? So that's it I have on slides. I have a lot more slides on my annexures, but that doesn't matter. But most important thing, I'd love questions. What are you, most of you are engineering students here from NIT, or what branch of thing? Engineering, yeah. So, chemistry, pure science. So you are doing your MTech? MSc. Okay, you have an integrated MSc course? Okay, just MSc. So after, what do you plan to do after that? Why nuclear medicine? Sure.
So I have to learn more in this sector also, and I love chemistry in nuclear field also.
Right.
So I love physical chemistry too much, and hence I
Sure. Since you're interested in nuclear medicine, one of the biggest challenges in nuclear medicine is delivery of the medicine, right? How do you deliver? So Jyoti here is working on robotics, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So see, in your institute itself, you have a scope for collaboration, right? If you go, both of you, work together, and she's also interested in, social upliftment, social betterment, right? So it's possible in your institute only to be able to collaborate together to create. So nuclear medicine, you need a delivery vehicle. Jyoti here can create a delivery vehicle for you.
Actually, sir, delivering a medicinal vehicle is an engineering problem.
No, it's not isolated. See, you make the medicine. See, this is the thinking which I want to get you. See, we have very, structured and isolated thinking. So in my slides, what I told you is your thinking needs to become a lot more holistic. While you're thinking about the medicine, you also need to start thinking about how do I deliver it. Right?
These are biotech engineering problems. Just like that, Einstein told us that if you travel the moon speed of light, you will travel in future or past, whatever you want. So he just give a theory as a pure scientist, but time traveling is an engineering problem.
I understand.
That's
Yeah, I understand. So let me take another sim. Sir here said something, which struck me. For example, a lot of traditional medicines have been documented. Okay, great. All job done, great, documented. But it's not benefiting Jyoti, her mother, or anyone else. Why? Because that person thinks that my job is done. But beyond that, there's clinical research, there's standardization required. But that is the job of someone. But that person has just let it go. Right? It has not come to the market, right? So if you finish your job, just that, you need to bring it to the market, right?
This is the challenge for the youngsters to come forward to validate all this.
Because I think it's very, very important, all of us, and see, I used to be in that same seat where you are standing today. Okay, you probably come from a bigger city, I came from a very small city. My outlook was, so the only outlook I had when I came for my, counseling to RDC at that time, Silchar, was I had to get a job. I didn't know whatever job. I had to, because the fastest way to get a job, because becoming MSc PhD was too long, my father was retiring. Fastest way to become an engineer and get a job. I didn't know what job. I just wanted to get a job. I didn't even know computer, civil, what was good, what was bad. But today, you have access to so much more resources. You have the internet, you have so much more. And it's not just him. I would urge all of you to start thinking holistically, to start thinking globally, not just in your own, small sphere.
Someone asked for some cancer.
Yes, sir.
Actually, still there are a number of medicinal plants are unexplored. You can go for some isolation level, come out with some good compound, good isolation chemical compound for cancer, or for other diseases like asthma or diabetes. That will be benefit for the society. Do it isolation level. That is good. Yes. You have to go for. You can take some outsourcing otherwise.
No, I'm sure, see, this is what I'm saying. See, resources will be available in your thing. See, all our universities have departmental thinking. Departments are isolated. Even within a university, people are not collaborating with each other. Even within departments, if you have a guide, one guide is not collaborating with the other guide. So the new world is about collaboration. The new world is about teamwork. And that's what, it's very important having an IT system in place so that, transparency, that someone knows that, hey, this is there. There's a skill that is available. Hey, can I collaborate with something to actually bring the whole thing to the market? We need to get rid of our isolation.
Actually, we success story. We funded for a number of R&D projects, research and development. After that, 3 institutions, one from Coimbatore and 2 others from Nashik, they isolated some novel compound. Now it is patent process. With the collaboration with KNDP and Cancer Institute, now we are going for the patent. So like that, you have to go for the identification of the exact molecule. So
So how would you solve that, for example? How would you solve that? No, so for example, one of the biggest ways the world is doing is if you open a hackathon, for example, open it up, offer a little bit of prize money, open it up to the whole world, right? You will see thousands of people coming in to submit approaches to that. See, right now you are thinking of a problem in isolation with your professors here, right? But that's not the whole world. I'm sure some corner of the world someone has created something which those solutions you can adapt it to yours, right? You need to open up to the world. And there are a lot of tools available there. Okay, great. Sorry, you have something else?
Actually, sir, what are you saying is totally true. I especially agree. There is only one term, which is science. We can't divide it into physics, mechanical engineering, or anything.
Sure.
But it's all about our education system. It tells us that that's the mentality of our guides. I'm not telling anyone with any dedicated manner, but it is our mentality of our guide also, and many people around that. So that's what our mentality should be like that.
See, like I started my presentation with, see, we can keep on blaming the system. So you'll then be stuck in the system. Or you can rise above it. See, today's new world is, imagine when we grew up, our knowledge was limited to a book which was written 20 years back. Science has gone forward so much more. So we read all outdated stuff. You have access to the latest. You should be the driver of change. See, don't blame the system. System will remain. The system has been written 50 years back. But when you say that, you are part of the system, right? You have to be the driver of change. You know better, right? See, that's where, analytical skills come in. With data, which says you have to go and challenge your dean, your professor, whoever it is. Saying there's a better way there. And I'm sure if there's a better way, they'll listen to you if you make sense. Okay, thanks a lot. That's it. I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wise information. How we have to think about the future, which makes a better society. Now I'd like to invite Sri Partha Pratim sir to share his presentation here.